Hey, lady. Welcome to the Grit, Growth, Grace podcast. If we haven't met, my name is Anne Marie. I'm wife to James and mom to 4 beautiful kids, plus 1 miscarried baby, from 9 months up to 8 years. My hope is to help other women experience the postpartum period, all the way up to the first year of baby's life, as a time of grit, growth, and grace. This is episode 18. Hey lady, is it time to start exercising again? Last episode, I talked all about pelvic floor physical therapy, and I encouraged you, if you've had a baby and haven't yet started working out again, or you've had a baby but you've never worked out in your life, first, start by working with a pelvic floor PT to assess where your strength is at, so you can strengthen, not strain your muscles, especially your pelvic floor, and so you can know what you are and aren't ready for yet. In this episode now, I want to talk about returning to exercise or starting to work out even if it's not been your thing in the past. If instead of any of that you're thinking, in the words of the character Hamster in the animated kids movie Bolt, I eat danger for breakfast, I've got you. In this week's email, I'll include a link to a YouTube channel by a mom of 4 who's a military veteran and does the BA workouts you might crave. I've acknowledged those aren't my style, at least not in this current season of life. But if they're your jam, I've got you covered. Sign up for the emails over at postpartumonpurpose.com. All right, so back to you if you are returning to exercise or especially at this point have not really exercised consistently in your life, right? You might be thinking, Anne Marie, I'm X years old. What would possess me to start working out now if I have never done so before? I don't know why you didn't exercise regularly before, lady. Maybe you got intimidated because you didn't know how to lift properly, or you didn't want to look foolish. Maybe you didn't have a friend group that regularly exercised. Perhaps there are other kids you've had to care for, other commitments, such that exercise just never made your priority list. Or perhaps, frankly, you just weren't interested. Listen, I don't know what you did or didn't do before. But I do know that I believe with every fiber of my being that postpartum is a time of invitation. It's a time of invitation to intentional growth. Now, some areas of growth during postpartum, you and I don't get to choose. We don't get to choose if our baby has a tongue tie that impacts their ability to nurse, or they have colic, or a significant medical issue or issues, or we have a significant medical issue or issues. We don't get to choose some areas of growth. But some, we do. You'll hear me say again and again, in one episode after another, postpartum can be a time to consider and reconsider, to dream, to step back, yes, but also to choose what you step forward into after those first weeks and months of really significant rest and scaled back activities and schedules. In this space, I so hope you'll carve out, especially in those early weeks and months, for quiet and a lull from your regular activity as you're resting and being present and bonding with your baby, and also dreaming a little. I hope you're also thinking about what you'd like to do that maybe you just didn't have time to think about before. And one of those things might be working out, whether at all or more consistently. If you worked out before baby, perhaps now you're realizing you need to get creative with how you're going to do that going forward. When I was very little, I took ballet and tap and jazz and tumbling, and that's where my lifelong love of glitter and sequins and sparkles came from. Then when I was older, I played basketball and softball through a Christian rec league, most of which I would describe not as A team or B team, but maybe the C plus team experience. And then in college, I played intramural basketball and ultimate frisbee, especially ultimate frisbee, until the cows came home my freshman and sophomore year. I lived to get out and play, hanging out with the friends I met through that. But also during college, I started going to Zumba classes, which was the closest thing I'd ever found to a dance workout. After I graduated, I just kept going to Zumba classes at whatever gym was closest. Through the birth of my son and then my daughter, I went exclusively to workout classes at the local gym. I branched out from Zumba over time to other classes, but I did not run on the track or lift weights in the free weights section because I didn't enjoy running for running's sake, and I didn't feel confident that I could lift without hurting myself. But then, after my almost 3-year-old was born, the gym I was attending just stopped being a good fit. It was a half-hour drive each way, and classes lasted an hour, and the time commitment wasn't a good fit anymore. It's funny because while I'd feared that this day would come and that it'd be taken away from me and I'd feel deprived and annoyed, when it happened, it was actually a very peaceful realization. Especially so because providentially, a woman in my small town had begun teaching a 45-minute ish workout class several times a week out of a rented photography studio just down the street. And I did that for a year and a half or so. And then maybe, I don't know, 8 months back, I decided I wanted to work out on my own in shorter chunks of time and with just a YouTube channel, right? So totally free. I wondered if I'd fall off the wagon altogether without that accountability. But if you know me, you know I'm a pretty driven person, so that didn't happen. I work out 4 or 5-ish times a week, and the workouts are short, sometimes just 20 minutes, sometimes 25. Lately, I've been trying to go more for 30 minutes, right? I tend to get up and work out first thing in the morning, even if it's just the first 15 minutes of a longer workout video. And frankly, in all transparency, I will work out in my pajamas if that is the difference between me working out at all and me not. So if that's what it takes and that's the way I show up, I roll out the little exercise mat on the floor in my room and pull the tray that my husband made for my hand weights out from underneath the bed and just press play. Um, but it's important to me to begin the day by moving and not figure out other ways to spend my time and then poof, the day's gone. Why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you so you can see, one, I've got some experience with exercising, enough to be dangerous, I suppose. And also that you can see, also so that you can see, being intentional about exercise, whether the first time or getting back into it, can start very small and it might look unconventional. Here are some thoughts for your consideration, with the encouragement, as always, to take what serves you and absolutely leave the rest. Number one, get assessed by your pelvic floor PT. I already said that in the last episode. I said it in this episode too. Can you tell I think it's important? Number two, after you see the PT, start slow. In last week's email with resources from this episode, or from that episode, I included my favorite YouTube video with 8 ab separation friendly or diastasis recti friendly exercises to start retraining your core. There's a video linked to it that has more advanced exercises as well when you're ready for those. But after I have a baby, I spend a while just on that first 10-minute video with 8 exercises. It's not even a workout video. They're just exercises to start reconnecting with and strengthening your core so you are ready to exercise. Start slow. Number 3, start small. In one of my favorite books, The Lazy Genius Way by Kendra Adachi, yes, you've heard it before, she talks about wanting to get into yoga, the habit of doing yoga. And she wrote that every day for 14 months, she did one yoga pose, the same one, every day for, I think, a minute. Some days she thought it was stupid, and some days she thought it was pointless. But because the time commitment was so small and the step was so easy, she just kept doing it. And then after 14 months, it was easy and effortless and felt natural, and she began doing more poses, etc. The point isn't to do yoga, which I don't think is a great practice here if you're a Christian. The point is that she started so small that she could not fail. James Clear talks about this too in his book Atomic Habits, another of my favorites. He talks about making the first step to your new or returning to habit so easy that there's no resistance to doing it. It's not that we're never to do hard things, and he points that out. The point is to make starting so easy that it's a no-brainer to do so, and then we solidify that habit and train ourselves to do harder things over time. And that is the method behind the madness of me working out in my pajamas sometimes. The instructor on my favorite YouTube workout channel always says, some minutes is better than no minutes. And I believe that. Some movement or activity is better than none. That mentality has led me, mostly through 15 and 20-minute workouts at a time, to be the strongest I've ever been in my life. Compared to a competitive athlete, am I that strong? No. But I'm stronger than I have ever been. And I've formed a habit of working out because it's part of my identity. I am a person who works out. If it's bedtime and I didn't make time for exercise that day, or the day went sideways despite my best plans, I just do a 2-minute plank. If I did nothing else the whole day, I will finish the day with a 2-minute plank. So start small, whatever that looks like for you, even ridiculously small. Number 4, know yourself. Do you like to do things alone? or with a buddy? Do you need the incentive to work out of having paid to do so, like through a gym membership or a subscription service online? What level of accountability do you need to make time for it? Do you want to listen to a podcast while you work out? I found that when I do this, I don't tend to work out as hard because I'm thinking about what I'm listening to. But if I don't have the motivation to do a straight workout video, I'll pair it with something I do want to listen to. Again, some minutes are better than no minutes. Number 5. This ties back to starting so small that it's almost laughable. But doing that makes consistency possible. Consistency is the key. To continue to show up every other day after every other day, because 4 workouts a week doesn't mean I show up day after day, technically. That's where the gains come from. This is where the identity change that's necessary to build a habit comes from. Our lives change when our habits change. And to build a habit, I have to add or change a belief about myself. And the more consistent I am, the easier it is for me to believe this new thought about myself. I am a person who exercises. Number 6, I don't actually work out with a goal in mind usually, and I don't work out to lose the baby weight. That might sound counterintuitive, but again, from my favorite workout channel instructor, she never talks about how many calories we burn during class. She doesn't talk about the scale or your weight, other than like your arm weights, right? But she doesn't talk about the numbers of your weight or your body at all. Don't get me wrong, I know what my weight is. I have a range in mind that I'd like to stay within. But James Clear pointed out that habits are more crucial than goals in the long run, because if all you're focused on is the goal, once you hit it, you're just looking for what's the next thing, or maybe you stop what you're doing altogether. But if you're in the habit of looking for, he called it 1% every move, 1% improvement every day or every time, that's where the greatest gains come from over time. To me, that means just showing up each time and seeing if I've got a touch more to give. Maybe I had to modify some exercises, but maybe I didn't modify one that I used to, or maybe I went a little heavier because I put resistance bands around my legs, or whatever. For a girl who is highly metrics and data driven and motivated, this approach has actually taken the pressure off, so I'm not trying to perform so much as just show up and give whatever I've got that day. Number 7, I have talked about working out and exercising, but I haven't been particularly prescriptive about like what to do. And that's because I think that each of us is smart and knows what makes sense for us to start with and maybe what we would like to do next. So I don't necessarily think everybody should swim laps or everybody should blah, blah, blah. I think you will decide what makes sense for you. The one thing I will offer as far as like specifically consider this is if you've worked out before but never done strength training, can I put in the world's shortest plug for learning to use basic hand weights? Go hardcore if you want, by all means, but to at least start working out with 5 or 8 or 10-pound weights is all kinds of good for your health in all kinds of ways. You're not going to get bulky, but you will get stronger and healthier if you start lifting at least hand weights a couple times a week. I'll send you a great link to get you started in this week's email. That's it for this time, lady. Next episode, let's talk knowing when it's time to go back to work or your other regularly scheduled programming, and if you're going back too soon. I'll talk to you then.